when I talk about economic impact, and we started this by the way, we started. Well, we'll do the intro. We
No,
started.
I don't want this to be a part of this
It's not. It's
conversation.
not. But this is the flow. We'll let it flow.
Yeah.
So when I talk about economic impact, I'm talking about overall. So you talk about business owners. You're talking about schools. You're talking about different communities in that area, right? Even households that live close to LSU that's using their houses or their yards as like parking. You know what I'm saying? Everybody is being affected economically. So I think personally, it's bringing community together. Because last time LSU played Southern, he had no crime. Everybody was happy. You had tailgate and all this stuff going on. People are really really happy. I'm not saying this is the real life of it. It's like when the Saints play, everybody come together, right? Or when a hurricane happens, everybody come together. Same thing happens when Southern plays LSU, to me.
Yeah, and I understand that completely, but I'm very pro HBCU. Like, again, I don't think that we have to be in coordination with them to solidify something like that. And even when you talk about like the tailgating component of it, like, I'm not from New Orleans, right? So I know people from New Orleans as it relates to upbringing. Being around Black people and culture is something that you're exposed to at a very early age.
Yes.
And so continuing, even when you think about higher education and attending an HBCU at times, when you get into your adulthood, you think that, again, like, you need some type of close proximity to something to validate something. But saying that to say, for you, interject.
Okay. Listen.
I went to private Catholic school from preschool to 12th grade. So the HBCU experience for me was something that was great. And as it relates to interacting with white kids or people that don't necessarily look like me, those opportunities are still available in undergrad, but just through a different lens. That might look like internships, that might look like international travel and fellowships. All of these things are available on the HBCU campus, right? And so even when I think about my higher education now, like Calvin mentioned, Miss SBA. I was a political appointee at 32 years old. My master's and bachelor's from Southern University. Now, I've done certain certifications through PWIs or what have you. But I'm saying I didn't need that for the foundation. And when you look at the heightened climate of what's happening in this country right now, white people, drunk, inebriated, at times is a ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
And the culture of tailgating is completely different, because if we keeping it 100, there's not that much mixing to that capacity where it's all kumbaya. You had what is it called, Union Field or whatever, the governor shut down. And so like it's a constant imitation at times of HBCU culture that they try to bring to their campus. Because I don't know if it was the same back when you was on the yard in 1991 when I was an infant. But when I think about when I was there from 2008 to 2012, all the Black kids from LSU, what they did, they came to Southern University for our events. They came for our Greek events, you know what I'm saying? Because it was like they were almost missing something. Now, there's also conversations with PWIs, or we make more HBCUs on campus. It's not the same. And I can say that confidently because, like, again, I didn't go through two predominantly white schools for 50 years in my life. I was a Black girl, you know? And so, like, that's it. Like, and I understand the cultural component of it. I understand that there was peace within the community. But also look at this, too, since the historical context of this country. What have we always been used for? Entertainment purposes, athleticism. So, you know, like...
But now, to your point, now. What you just said, all that is valid. But some of that stuff, I think, is extremes, in my opinion. The reason why I say that, some people utilize opportunity, right? When you have, when I look at Southern is a HBCU, right? But Southern is just that, an HBCU. The thing is, it's like that saying about Jackie Robinson. They say, well, we had our own leagues. We had the liberal league, right? Jackie Robinson integrated. And they said that was the worst thing to happen to Black sports. But the thing was this, we had our own league, but we had just that.
Like of resources and exposure and things like that in a higher platform. And I understand that, but that's just how I feel. No, we can have a deeper conversation even about integration, you know? But
but now I'm looking at it like this, because the thing is, if having impact in just your community. Me personally, I don't think that's an impact that God wants to. If you a believer of God, I think God is universal,
For sure.
right? And God could be in any situation, at any place. Now, don't get me wrong. We have institutionalism and separatism and things of that nature. I get that. But when it comes to like being resourceful, being impactful, universally, you have to integrate with different individuals,
For sure.
right? Different cultures, different lifestyles, different understandings,
Right.
different religions, different makes.
And I mean, and I'm aware of that because, like, again, I said I went to a predominantly white school. I've traveled the world, different
about to
parts
say that,
of
yeah.
Europe. I've been in different international fellowships where I actually have friends from the country Georgia. From Brussels, Belgium, from France, from different countries in Africa. So I understand all of those things. But my thing is just at what expense, right? Like when I think about young black boys, the difference in divisions, the possibility of getting hurt. When I think about Devin Gales, you know what I'm saying, who's now paralyzed and certain things. So yeah, it can be some extremes, but it's not that it's not that far away from happening, and especially just at the height of everything that's happening nationally, the height of everything that's happening locally with the administration, at the local and the state level as well. And so I guess just for me by nature to always think about sometimes the worst that could happen because I'm a social science major and that's how I think and analyze it. And naturally I am a protector as well. So like again, I understand the negatives, I understand the positives, I understand the importance of exposing yourselves to different cultures, demographics and things like that. But there's various ways to do that, and like again, it doesn't always have to be at the expense of a certain demographic.
So I think this is the same, right? Exposure leads to expansion. Now, how do you want to take that? Anything that you're exposed to, you're going to expand your mind, right? So now, in expanding your mind, sometimes I think limitations and capacity becomes limited when you start exposing yourself to whatever, right? For instance, you had a job that was appointed from the president. That's exposure in itself. And now, if you go, even though you didn't, if a person went into it with that mentality saying, I'm protecting just my community. It's a good example. Obama, President Obama. The first thing he said, I'm not a president for black people.
I'm president for all. But like, no, but
I would love
I'm saying, but I don't think that I'm negating any of those things. Like again, everything isn't necessarily linear, and these are nuanced, different experiences. So while there's some commonality in the examples that you're presenting, I don't think it's like directly connected to what I'm saying specifically as it relates to sports and athleticism, and just again, Baton Rouge and the community overall. Based off of the conversation that was had about, for instance, tailgating and just interacting with white folks and tailgating. Because, like, again, there's an opportunity to expand your horizon and perspectives in other environments rather than an opportunity when people are inebriated and where, like, again, there's still a common ground, like you mentioned, saints and things like that. It's always going to be kumbaya around sports. It's always going to be kumbaya around music and things like that. But like again, outside of that, where can we have those type of conversations and exposure and engagement amongst people? But it's not that I don't disagree with it. Like again, I just think to what extent, and I agree with the young man. We had it once. It was great. Again, I still think it was segregated within itself as it relates to tailgating and things like that. I still believe that if we're keeping it 100 without us there as it relates to tailgating and the halftime show and all of those things, it would still be very much so bland.
That's a whole other conversation because we could go there, but I don't want to go there because I don't live in Louisiana. But
you live in the U.S. and what's happening in Louisiana is happening throughout the country.
But I live in a place where black people are progressive and we vote.
Yeah, for sure. And black people here,
they didn't vote.
No,
at all.
No, that's misinformation because first of all, when you think about voter apathy, and that's not making an excuse, but the amount of elections in Louisiana is far higher than it is in Texas, than it is in Alabama, than it is in other deep South states as well. When you look at the voter purges, when you look at, again, certain laws that that were created to expand democracy and voting rights. Some of those things have been peeled back within the last 4 to 5 years. I know that specifically because I lobbied for them personally.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I mean, that's a much larger conversation. But I think you cannot necessarily blame the victim or the impacted at times, especially when there's lack of education, lack of exposure, and even the ways how some of these elections are happening now. Now, you have a lot of grassroots organizations on the ground and nonprofits who are doing the work, but guess what? They've done things that have been unheard of as it relates to electing the most progressive possible governor, as it relates to redistricting, as it relates to voter expansion. But we see those things being pulled back now. So, there is frustration around that, right? But what I have noticed in a pattern of certain elections is when there's excitement around people, around a particular issue, and people are educated about it, they actually do go out and vote. When you think about the amendments passed to elections within the past 2 years as relates to voting no on certain things, people, one, they have to be educated about what's going on. They have to understand how it's going to impact them and their community and their specific household and what it means to go out and vote.
So how do you educate someone or community of individuals that historically the pattern is the same? Right. So what is the solution? Because if it's been like this for the last, say, 20 years, right?
I will argue you and say that it hasn't been like that for the past 20 years. Elections and cycles fluctuate and they change.
Yeah, that's true.
And the thing is, it's not that hard in terms of meeting people where they are, right? You're always going to have a certain demographic of people who, no matter what you tell them, they're not worried and they're not interested,
100%.
right? But like, again, when there are certain issues and when people are educated, you have seen the needle move with voting. I think that at times, like, again, people find a certain narrative and run with it without calculating and really looking at numbers. In every state, every policy, every election is different. And so, like, again, because I know some of these organizations personally, I think that's why I'm pushing back on it so much. And I have seen the change, in certain elections. But what we have to have a real conversation around, too, as relates to Black leaders, as relates to democracy, is around electing, viable candidates, not just based on your family, not just based off of association, not just based off your title. Because at the end of the day, to actually lean into what you were saying, some of the issues that remain stagnant or remain the same sometimes is because people hold on to a position and not necessarily using the power that you have within that position to make change, right?
And one reason why I have these comments that I'm speaking about, because I'm from here. And I know a lot of people that's in government here, but I live in Texas and Houston. But from my viewpoint, I see the social infrastructure and how we are evolving like tremendously in every aspect.
I mean, but look at the size of Texas and the infrastructure and the resources. That's what I'm saying. The things are different from Louisiana. I'm from Louisiana as well, have lived in various parts of Louisiana and have worked in various communities throughout the country, right? So I live in New Orleans now. I was born in a little rural community that's 600 people. If we've been Napoleonville, actually, and the unincorporated town is Bertrandville.
Bertrand, okay.
Saying that to say it was in Baton Rouge for 10 years. Now I've been in New Orleans for almost 10 years, but I've worked in Houston. I've worked in Abilene, Texas. I've worked in El Paso, same state, very different communities, very different views. You don't necessarily see that in a small rural state such as Louisiana, right? And, even when you think about the conversations that are being had at the state level about New Orleans not being that great and what have you, when you look at Texas and the amount of different cities that can...
I don't want the people to view that. I'm not comparing states.
No, I'm saying again, in terms of infrastructure, resources, cities, and the amount of exposure to tourism and different things that can create a bottom line for a state budget, right? If we keep them in a buck, Louisiana, we have New Orleans. oil and gas,
Yes.
right? Certain industries, and you see certain things that are growing. Some things that may be great for certain communities, some things that may be horrible that's in the the background.
Yeah.
But just saying that to say, like, Louisiana, we feel the impacts of things much graver here because we are a smaller state with less resources in comparison to Texas, right?
So let me ask you this: since we jumped in the conversation, my first time jumping in the conversation, kept going. So that's fine.
Okay.
I love it though. So
Didn't know we were really recording.
we were really in it now. So where did you get this like this is me. This is you're gonna listen to me. You're gonna hear me, no matter what.
My grandmother that I never met. And I say that to say because I believe that her characteristics and traits were also carried on to my mother, right? And my parents are older. My parents are 75. My daddy just turned 75 July 6th. My mom will make her 75 in December. Internally, as relates to her own workers' rights and certain things that she wanted, such as Social Security and all these different things, she never hesitated from that. And I think I did gain that determination and that grit and that assertiveness from her that was passed down to my mother, to myself.
So why we talk about some of these things about our culture? Mm-hmm. First of all, what does culture mean to you? Because I feel the passion in it. Mm-hmm. And why is it so important? Like, why is the culture so important?
Culture is so important because if you lose it, you lose legacy, you lose generations, right? And if you don't speak of culture, then it can easily be erased and be created into something. Somebody else can create a narrative or gain control over something. Like for me, I don't agree with everything as it relates to like Catholicism and the Catholic Church, of course, but that is a part of my community. That is a part of our culture. Like for instance, for me, like again, living in a deep pro-rural South where Black people were being spat on and could not enter white churches, and that's across all different denominations during that time. My community, my family basically went to the diocese and was like, look, if we give you the land, we can build the church ourselves, right?
So you're born Catholic?
I was born Catholic.
Still Catholic?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Born and raised Catholic. So St. Benedict the Moor Catholic Church in Bertrandville in Assumption Parish holds significance to me because the Skidmores, that's my grandmother's maiden name, they donated the land there and they built that church. And my grandmother, or Skidmore Heim, was the first to be baptized there as well. She was born in January of 1912 and she was baptized in 1913. Exactly, because my parents speak to me. They speak to me, and I have so much. I love where I come from too, as well. Like the thing that like grinds my gears is when I say I'm from somewhere. Like, oh, you from the country? Like that's an insult. Like that's not an insult for me by any means.
It's not an insult. I think when people say that, they say because all right. So the stigma is this. This was I do. When they say country, country is tied to ignorance.
Right. But I see it a lot in city folks as well, and arrogance, and and like again, that's why when people that are from certain communities or from certain cities and like, oh, you from the country, I'm like, baby, I carry myself well, and I have matriculated to many levels that y'all have never even experienced. So being from the country is not an insult for me. And being from the country as well, because you have lack of resources, which you have, that determination and that grit. When I think about like entrepreneurship and all of those things, well, one of the things that I told you, my family's born, right? The Jamison's born. Now, Jamison's not what it used to be back in the day, right? But back in the day when it was built, the building that still stands now since 1961, like again, you had the determination of a Black man in Bertrandville, Louisiana, that wanted to do something for his family, that wanted to make a way for his family. You have to learn to have determination and grit, and I think at times it may come from lack of without to push you and motivate you to.
So when do you use the term assertiveness? So, are there times when your assertion is overpowered, is overwhelming, versus sitting and just receiving?
I had to learn. I really had to learn. Nobody's perfect, right? Mm-hmm. So, And I use the term assertive because so many times what you hear, angry black people, you know, combative, aggressive, and I absolutely hate that.
Scared.
No,
Fearful.
no. But yeah, I've learned to be assertive and at times listen calmly and have different perspectives through age, right? Because 10 years ago, or maybe 15 years ago, oh, my nickname was Fire Ray.
Oh, about to say. I can tell. Oh, I can tell.
And look, but that came from my daddy.
Look, I can tell you.
That you know, I'm quick with a response now. But no, it took experience, it took exposure, it took me interacting with different groups, different demographics at times to sit back and listen. For instance, when I did this international fellowship in Brussels, Belgium, like I told you, I have friends throughout the country now, all along the transatlantic slave route, right? But with that being said, that was my first experience where there were only 2 Americans that were a part of the fellowship. I was the only Black American woman. I was probably the only person in there that only knew one language for real. Like I know muy poquito Spanish, okay, muy poquito Espanol. And so, so having to learn to sit back and to listen and understand that as well. People come from different communities, different upbringings, different cultures, different countries, different nations.
Yes.
So you have to listen, you know, not necessarily to respond, but sometimes just listen and not necessarily take up so much energy anymore. And I think also working in local government taught me that as well. A lot of people who first saw me in local government, well, my first gig in local government was the village of Napoleonville. You know, my Ron and Nima, who's still the mayor there. Him and my dad were good friends. This is when I was 19, a political science major. Now, kind of taking another route, but you know, as it relates to, I guess, like being a hustler, being determined. I alluded to, I never had to really work for anything as it relates to finances because my parents took care of me. I'm an only child, but I never really wanted to lean on that dependency. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to be independent so that I knew that I would be able to manage. When I was a legislative assistant for Erica Green, she's now a judge, and then she was a city council member. And even before then, I was the office manager for her law firm. But saying that to say, I gained municipal government exposure in East Baton Rouge, then working in that position. Going back to the point, that is also where I learned to sit back and listen, right? I was often intimidated in many of those spaces because I'm young. At that point, I was probably like in grad school. I just finished undergrad at Southern. I was in grad school and I worked for the city. And so, you know, I was a legislative assistant. Now, in that space too, I also built up my skill sets, right? It's within that time people would say it jokingly, but they, you know, would call me the director of formation and say that I have receipts because, you know, if I'm doing something wrong, then I'm doing something wrong. But don't accuse me of doing something wrong when I know I do, you know? And so at that time, it was important for me to listen, but also create systems and receipts so that when I am questioned about something, I have an answer for it. So I think that kind of gave me the foundation of how I interact with people.
Yeah, because I can just tell that you, like you said, you go back to the receipt 20 years ago, 10 years ago, and that's a good thing because you're detailed. That's a good thing, especially when you work in the government. But I want to go back to the government thing, working with people, constituents. What is one thing that you've seen from people that a lot of people are lacking? Just in general.
Yeah, I would say accessibility to certain departments within the government, right? Because sometimes, like again, when I worked in very localized government, I still took my role seriously. And so I don't know, I'm only speaking about me. I don't know how other people work within that. But I would hear from constituents like, baby, I've been complaining about this for the past 5 years. I've been complaining about this for the past 7 years. You're the only person that gave me a follow-up. You're the only person that is trying to advocate. So with that being said, I think it's the accessibility to understanding how certain departments and governments work to create incremental change for whatever issue you may have, right? And that doesn't necessarily follow the constituent. That falls in the structure of the government and certain people that are placed within positions.
Yeah, because I asked that question because I know, so people don't realize that they have the power, and the public officials work for them.
For sure.
Right. So, because I guess I'm asking that question because it's a universal thing in the United States. A lot of people don't know the power that they have.
And the power of the vote too.
Yes.
Like that's the thing. Like it frustrates me so much when I look on social media and I see people like attacking certain elected officials under comments on Instagram and Facebook and lives, not because they're saying things that may be, hurtful or calling people out because you're supposed to, but it's like take that anger to the booth. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
take that anger to the polls, take that anger to the city council meetings, and to, the state legislature. Even if you can't physically be there, there's an opportunity for you to email, to write letters. If you know I'm enough, you get frustrated enough, and the understanding that policy and change is incremental. We literally had 200 plus years of slavery, of Jim Crow, and what we see within this current administration is certain views are certain views. They never disappeared. People just camouflage them, right? And so with that being said, we can't become so upset and disgruntled in a system that wasn't even created in a way to really benefit people that look like you and I in the first place, right? So again, what's important that I think people need to realize, like you said, how powerful they are as individuals, and people that are in certain positions of power and authority, use the power that you have to make change. Like when I was the regional advocate within the Small Business Administration, I knew that this was temporary, whether Kamala was elected or not, right? But what I vowed to do was I'm going to do the most that I can to make sure that I'm educating people about this regulatory process. I'm going to do the most that I can to make sure that I'm creating a strategy where, people may not have never even heard about what the Office of Advocacy is, which they didn't. When people think of SBA, they thought about loans and programs. Right. That was the programming side. That was the Ted James side, because people thought that I worked for Ted. I did not work for Ted. We were two separate departments. I was underneath the policy side, the policy lens of this is this proposed regulation that's coming down the pipeline. What do you not like about it? This is potentially what it may do. And I think what worked so well, even between me and Ted, was even though we work for two different departments, we work together in a sense of we both carry the same region. Yeah. We both carry the same region. So let's educate collectively so that people can see in plain sight. These are two different departments.
But they have the same aligned
of the different departments. For sure. Timelines, right? Because I'm a baby compared to a lot of y'all. Y'all mid to late 40s. I'm still in my mid 30s. But the connection to Southern University, HBCUs, to being all of those things are important in the long run, and you get to maintain relationships and meet different people because you're working for a common goal. So I know we're necessarily talking about that, but I still think it's connected.
I want to talk about that. I always got a roundabout talking about Southern, the Southern experience. So tell us, what has Southern done for you in your world, and how has it cultivated you?
I love Southern University. So again, I'm a traditional Black Southern family. Come from a Black Southern family. Half is Grambling, half Southern. Daddy side, they Grambling. Mama side, Southern. To go to Southern University and to see professors in administration who look like me, that was something I never experienced, right? And as it relates to relationships and friendships, man, the friends that I met at freshman orientation, driving our preview, friends, I'm telling you, best friends to this day. Like when we are going through certain situations, celebrations, marriages, children, of course, but when we're going through surgeries and life-threatening things, everything, we're there, we're supporting each other. Like their parents became my parents became their parents. And the beautiful thing as well, I always tell the story is our parents, particularly to my suite mates, were so invested. So, it was me. I had my first roommate was Ashley. My other suite mate was Keita, and her roommate was Ashley. We all met at Jaguar Preview, but like our parents were so invested. All of our parents met together in McDonald's before you crossed the hump to meet everybody, to exchange contact information, to learn about each other, and knowing like these are our babies, these are our girls. We'll go across this hump together. We decorate their dorms together. So just cultivating that experience and community from the beginning was so fruitful and beneficial for me. And even Greek life, like, you had one of my sorors on here from a past interview, and I was like, she's one of my faves. She's 99, I'm 2009, but still, like, the love is still there because, that's the importance of Greek life and culture, man. And even when I think about, like, AKA, my family that went to Grambling, my dad's two aunts, my great aunts, they're still here now, but I was embracing to Greek life and Alpha Kappa Alpha since I was a young girl. Like 10, 11 years old, I was going to our national conventions and say booing. But I still didn't understand the complexity of it. Like I saw the sisterhood, I saw beautiful black women wearing pink and green. But when I stepped on Southern University's campus, I was just like, wow, like I will be an asset to this organization, right? My freshman year, my mom was just like, well, look, tuition is paid for, your books are paid for, you have this set amount of money. If you want to use this to run for Miss Freshman, I'm going to support you. My mom has always and is always my support, and my father as well. Like I love my parents; they support me every step of the way. And so like I ran and I won, right? But that gave me the opportunity to then be introduced to Student Government Association, to having conversations from people who may, on the surface level, look like me, but we come from different backgrounds, we come from different parts of the country and things like that, and having conversations about local government and voting rights and all HBCUs.
So let me ask you this, because I had to pause.
There's 107 of them. I love all of them.
So I know you've done a lot of stuff. You made a lot of major strides to be so young, right? Do you have your expectations for yourself? Do you have a high, do you want to, what do you want to do ultimately? Because you accomplished a lot.
Yeah, I live a life where I say, look, if I ain't got to accomplish another thing I have accomplished the most in my 36 years of life that people would even accomplish within their entire trajectory of their life. I just keep on moving in the callings in which God opens doors and opportunities to me. And that's just as simple as that.
Yeah.
Man, God is so good. God is so good. God is so good. And He has not capped me yet. I don't believe that I have reached my peak. I have not peaked by any means. So when you ask me, what's next, I do not know. Okay. But I know that God is going to open a door and an opportunity, and I walk in faith and knowing that as well.
I see you as a public official. I'm talking about like the mayor or something. You have it. You have the information.
Yeah.
You have the assertiveness, and you're a people's person.
I am.
And you like to educate people on government.
For sure. But because I know the background at times to that as relates to fundraising and money and puppetry and things of that nature.
You have to do what you got to do to get what you need in life. That's just for sure. And I've done that in every aspect of my life. Yeah.
And I know some great public officials, right? But that's not always the case, right? And so for me, in order for me to step in a situation such as that, there are certain things that need to be in order for me
I
to
got you.
expose myself also to that public scrutiny as well.
I got
You know
you.
what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
That, you know, the judgment and other things that comes with it, and you living a life under a microscope.
Yes.
Yeah, but you know, like again, I never say never to anything. I don't put a cap on anything either. If the opportunity is available to accomplish and do anything, if the timing is right, then it's going to happen. You know, I live a life where whatever happens, happens, and whatever happens today will be okay, as long as it's on the purpose which God, you know, has created
Right.
it to accomplish.
Do you consider yourself an alpha?
As an alpha, so you know, we kind of hinted on that.
Yes, I say yes. I'll take that as a yes. So,
No, so this is that. I am an alpha to a certain extent,
okay.
but I am so very much. I know how to take a step back in various situations, if that makes sense, right? Because like when we're having conversations around that, like again, I have to be an alpha in certain spaces as it relates to my career, right?
Yes.
Many spaces, I'm the only woman, I'm the only black person. And it's been like that for a minute now. You know what I'm saying?
Can you turn it off?
So what?
Can you turn it off?
For sure, for sure. Like again, because I have to navigate this within, you know, my career, in my personal life, I would rather to turn it off.
Okay.
Right? But also like again, sometimes I feel like sometimes people use alpha and an independent woman type of thing. You're being an adult, right? If I'm a single person and I live on my own, I have to be independent and sufficient because the only person I have is me.
That's right.
You know? I'm 36. I'm single. I don't have any children. And it's so often, like, for instance, I'm going to tell you a story. Like, I was in church for Mother's Day. And I was like, oh, you know, again, I'm from, oh, show your time coming. And I'm just like, I am doing fine over here. Let's be clear. I'm not sitting at home twiddling my fingers. I have been able to accomplish a lot. I've been able to travel and accomplish and do all these different things. And not saying that women who are married and who are mothers can't do that as well, but I'm moving at my own pace, right? And I also, again, believe in God and ordained time. I don't want to ever feel pressured to say, like, look, I'm this age, let me check this off, let me just make it work with this man. Because then again, like, you are settling to a certain extent, right? And for sure, because let me tell you, I have sometimes tried to listen to people and just make something work in a certain time frame, but if you're missing certain components such as, you know, companionship, being open, the emotional intelligence, being able to work through certain things and have certain perspectives and understand that certain things are linear, that there are nuanced responses to certain things, sometimes you can feel trapped, right? For sure. If you were forcing something, you wouldn't feel trapped.
These words you use, the word selection, force, trap. I think companionship is about alignment.
For sure. But if you're not aligned and forcing,
Now that's different, right? Now, but
that's what I'm leaning on.
now, what you're saying is true for some, but I think a lot of people use these words, but they don't use them in the right context. When I say alignment, of course, independency is prevalent and is key. You need independency amongst yourself, right?
For sure.
You gotta be able to provide.
To be correct, it is settling when you don't have that established alignment from the beginning, and you are just trying to make something work just for the sake of it. That's what I mean by that,
Gotcha.
right?
Okay.
Because I have dated certain men to where it's like, okay, they have these idea of certain things, right? They have a list, but internally, that's not really what they want. They're looking at the surface level, right? And so while I am very much so beautiful, body, teeth, and all that, you know, I am a human being,
Right,
you know,
100%.
I have emotions, I have intelligence, I have certain things. And so like, again, it's important for a guy to not just fall in love with the idea of me and superficial things.
Yeah.
And in order for us to think about alignment and building and all of those things, like you said, internally you have to be whole before you expect to have that companionship. So yeah, of course I want to get married. I come from marriage, so you know, like I want to get married. You know, like I said, my parents will be married 38 years. So
How can people get in contact with you just for advocacy,
for sure.
information, hit you up on your podcast? How can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, so go to JaneaJamison.com. That's JaneaJamison.com. My email is Janea@JaneaJamison.com. So very simple.
Okay.
IG is Janea_Claire13. That's my personal life. You know, don't go to my Instagram thinking you'll see me in a suit.
I got you. So, guys, it's a pleasure, man. Look, Janea, thank you